Today we are revisiting the BBC Micro. We are going to be looking at cleaning the disk drive and putting it back in. We're going to try and put the front bezel on, but because it's broken we might well not do that, and so I have got, just in case, second disk drive that's got a slightly better match of bezel. We're also going to be looking at the ROMs that are inside it and seeing what they are, looking at the disk interface ROM. I have got a little thing to add. It is an SD to BBC Micro card. It's kind of like the SD to IEC from a Commodore 64. And this comes with a ROM. Now, from what I remember, all the ROM sockets are full in here, so we're going to have to figure out something to sacrifice. But once we know what the ROMs are, we can check that. Also, if we get time, we are going to have a look at the OG power supply and see if we can figure out why it doesn't work, and maybe even get it working. So let's do it. I've taken the screws out and the ribbon cable from inside, which was basically so that I didn't lose it. This will go in the disk drive and so on. And there we go. There's no screws on the keyboard. Those are our 5 ROMs. One of those is basic, one of those is the TOS. That one is presumably DFS because it says DFS on it. But these meta something. Don't know what they are. So if you have not seen the first part of this exploration where we got the machine working and built the baby power supply for it, then please check it out. The link is in the top corner there, and I will wait for you to go and see it and come back. Good, I hope you enjoyed that. Let's just power it up and make sure it still works. I haven't done anything with it or anything to it. It's just been stacked on the shelf. But okay, so USB is plugged in, video is plugged into our little BNC adapter. And there we go. Okay, so I believe the command to look at the ROMs is going to be star ROM. Star ROM. Is it star ROM? No, try star ROMs. Okay, so we've got basic. I don't know what the L and the S and the SL mean. Maybe you could tell me in the comments. So ROM 7 and ROM 5 are Meta Assembler and Meta Editor. Okay, that's EDIM, and that's ASIM, Editor Assembler. These two presumably are the main operating system because they are otherwise unidentified. So I think either of, because I don't really know what they are, some sort of toolkit, either of those can be substituted by this one, I think. But let's turn this off. I want to just have a look. Let's take the keyboard off for the moment. I want to have a look at this DFS board, purely out of curiosity. So it's got a big riser on it. 233050S2 issue 1. Doesn't say who it's by. It's just the same information, and on the other side we have got WD1772. 1772 is the faster version of the 1770, and I think it handles higher density. I don't remember off the top of my head. Right, so SN 74ALS00. So that's a fast one. 74LS02 and a 74LS173. Okay, so that is the floppy disk controller. And that goes in there. Right, I'm going to look at that later. So now the floppy drive controller, this was, or rather the ribbon cable. So the one on the end here, this is the disk drive. This one here is the disk drive. So I think what we need to do is get this ribbon cable through the hole. And I think the only way we're going to do this, there's still bits of that gunge floating around. I think the only way we're going to do that is to take the board off, lever it out, and then lift that through. So let's unscrew all these. Now I think you can get an extra plug-in board that has a load more sockets in here. So because I believe you can take 15 in total and there's only 5 here. But there is going to be a question as to whether that board would fit with the floppy drive installed. But that is a question we will come to if we need to. Anyway, if you think that's a good idea, then please tell me in the comments. I've already got parts on order for a tube interface, so for a second coprocessor, or even a first coprocessor, second CPU anyway. So that will be coming up in another video, and then I guess I shall have to learn to play Elite, because Elite apparently is the game to play on a second processor. That might mean it's the only game you can play on a second processor, I don't know. I've never played Elite. I mean, I've run the intro to Frontier, but that's about it. Don't lift it up by the coprocessor board. How many times have I told you? Well, never, but... that is not the point. So, is that enough to get it through there? Go through, my son. I can't do much more without unsoldering that video connector. So I'm hoping it's going to go through. Go through, go through, go through. Yes. There we are, it's gone through. Hurrah. Not enough feet and hands and stuff. Get in there, get in there. There we go, that is in. The entire bench has collapsed around me, but never mind. So that is going to go through there. Like that. I'm not going to screw that down for the time being, just in case. Now the wisdom of having this as an internal drive may or may not be apparent, but that is how it came to us, and so that's how we're going to keep it, at least for the time being. Now we're going to have a look at the drive itself and take it apart and give it a good clean. If it's a 720K PC compatible, and I'm going to have to look up this part number FDD 4261A0K. But if we need to, then we've got this as an alternative, which is number 2 from our 1581 floppy tests. And you can look up that video in the top corner. PCBs are the lifeblood of retro computing, and whether you are designing your own or whether you're making a project from somewhere else, then you can get them from our sponsor this week, PCBWay. All you need to do is upload the Gerber files, select what color you want, a few other parameters like the thickness of the board and so on, and a week or so later you will get 10 boards for $5. They do lots of other things as well. They do CNC machining, they do 3D printing, they do sheet metal fabrication. Check them out, www.pcbway.com. If you click on the link in the description, you will get $5 off your first order. So go to it. Here is the floppy drive. Let's take the lid off and see what kind of a state it's in. Yeah, I don't think we actually need to take these little brackets off. But that's going to annoy me, so I'm going to. There we go. Fingerprint says somebody has been in here before. Actually, that doesn't look too dirty. I am surprised because that foam stuff, that degraded foam stuff, has got in absolutely everywhere else. Let's give it a little puff. Nothing much is coming out. So that is a good sign. I'm just going to clean the heads with a cotton bud and some IPA. And what I'll do is I'll just don't spray it. Let's just dunk the cotton bud into the IPA. Sorry, I'm doing this so I can see it, not so that you can see it. Okay, there was a little bit of dirt on there. Now it's very thoughtful in telling us what is the power supply on the back. So plus 5 volts and ground, that's really all we need to know. We just need a cable for that. I have attached the power supply lead for the floppy drive to the main board. This is basically how it was done originally, except in the original it was actually attached to these lugs. But what I've done is I've found some adjacent pins, basically both sides of that capacitor, and connected it there, just so that these are now not impeded. You will notice one difference from just now, and that is this ribbon cable. The reason being that I noticed while fitting this cable that the original ribbon cable here was in fact broken. You can see here it is, and you can see. Now I think that was broken a while ago, and sometimes it was making contact and sometimes it wasn't, because I didn't actually move this in the process. But because this is just like pin headers, 0.1 pitch, I've put in a regular DuPont style ribbon cable. You can get these from Amazon, etc. for basically in packs for a few quid, a few dollars, a few dineros. So that's quite a nice little substitute. And so I've plugged the main ribbon cable in here into the back of this, and now this can go into here. It's just 0 ground and 5 volts. There is no 12 volt supply on these drives, even though this connector would normally have one. So that'll go in there like that. Now I'm going to stick a book under here just to protect everything so it doesn't short out. And then we will switch the machine on and see if it actually boots, and then if we can do anything. I've got a couple of basically gash floppies. I don't know if they work, I don't know if there's anything on them. They certainly won't be formatted for a BBC, but we can play around and see if we can do anything. So I'm just going to set the camera to point to the screen. There we go, and let's switch the machine on. That's good. So now I need to figure out the appropriate commands to use the floppy drive. Now we can type *help, and that will tell us in a different way rather than typing *roms. That will tell us kind of what is in DFS 2.26, SRAM 1.05, I guess is that sideways RAM, and the meta editor and meta assembler, OS 1.20. Right. So the minimal, I don't know if you can see that, drive light is out. Oh. That's interesting. I guess that didn't like me moving the drive. Right. Holding the power, drive light is on. So I believe this is configured to be drive 0. This is a long floppy cable with no twist in it. I mean, why would it not be drive 0? It might be set, I shouldn't be moving that. Might be set in there. But I'm going to assume for the moment that this is drive 0. But we can say start drive 0. And that sets the default current drive to be drive 0. So to format this, and I've got some double-sided, double-density floppy disks. These are pre-formatted as IBM 720K. So plug that in, we hear the drive go, the light is still on. I don't know if that is significant. And in theory we can type *cat, and that should give us an error because there's nothing on the drive. It's IBM formatted as opposed to BBC formatted. I don't quite know what the difference is, but let's give it a go. Nothing. Okay, we should be able to get out of that with control break. So control break. Remember, break is this 3D printed key because I don't have an actual break key. So let's try the alternative drive 1. So start drive 1. it seems to accept that. So you can tell I don't really know what I'm doing. If you know what I should be doing, then please tell me in the comments, because I'm sort of poking around like a fish in a barrel, mixing me metaphors. Oops. So that again should have given us an error, but it didn't. Okay, control break. So to format a disk, you have to type star form 80, because I think these are 80 track drives. Well, certainly in native format they are 80 track drives. Drive 0, go yes. Formatting drive 0, track 00. The motor is spinning, but the motor is not stopped spinning. I would be expecting this to be like counting up at this point. Maybe we need to do it for drive 1. So start drive 1, because of course I didn't fit all this originally, so I don't know how it's supposed to be configured. There were no instructions with it. Star drive 1, and now form 80. Sorry, start form 80, and we're going to do drive 1, yes. That says exactly the same. It's kind of like it's not actually talking to the drive, although it's talking to the drive because it turns the motor on. I don't think the motor comes on just because you stick a disk in the drive. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's turn it off and turn it on. Try a different disk, just in case it can't read that disk or can't write to that disk. Okay, well I do have this other drive, which is the beige one, so we could try that. There we go. Now we know this drive works because we used it in our 1581 tests. Power it on. Green light this time, and the green light is on. I don't think that's entirely right, but never mind. So we're going to do star form 80. Let's try it without a disk in, just to see what happens. 0, yes. Well, apart from the fact that there's no disk in the drive and it is therefore not spinning, it's doing exactly the same. Let's try drive 1. Start form 80. 1, yes. Same again. Right. Disk in the drive. That is spinning. If I put my ear up against it, maybe if I put the microphone against it, you might hear that. So that is spinning. So with no disk in there, that makes exactly the same. I'm going to call that a hang because I think the flashing cursor is a function of the 6845 CRT controller rather than being software driven. So the fact that that's flashing does not mean that the machine has not crashed, I believe. Might be wrong. So, what do we do about this? Is it possible that this little power supply thing, which I sort of presumed was power delivery, but maybe it isn't. Maybe that is not delivering enough juice to supply the machine and the disk drive. So maybe it's just not getting enough oomph. In which case, we need to fix this. We've tried two different drives, one of which at least I know works. I'm assuming the cable is okay. Maybe it's not. Maybe we need a separate cable. Ideas on a postcard, please, or failing that, ideas in the comments section. Let's try the SD card interface. Maybe we will get somewhere with that. I'll just take this out for the time being and try this and see if we can get this to work at least. Okay, let's take this out and see what we've got. One sheet of words, one bag of plastic, one ROM, and one CD, which I will leave in the plastic case for the time being. So this is our device. Called TurboSPI. So there is a micro SD card installed in it. TurboSPI issue 3. Plus micro SD card plugs into the user port on the underside of the machine. Well, let's do that to start with. So we just turn it over. This one is the user port. So it's polarized. You can see, whoops, you can see the little cutout, or the little notch rather, and the slot is polarized, so that goes in there like that. Make sure that is nice and firmly home. So that is installed. Now we have to decide which of the slots to put it in. We have 4 available. That is the operating system. That is a static RAM. So I'm guessing the static RAM controller is in that. It's a sort of piece of irony. That is, it says Basic 2 and DFS. So are they both in that one slot? I don't know. But I'll leave that there for the time being. I'm going to take this one out. Actually, no, let's leave that in there. Let's take one of these out. I don't know that it really makes a difference. I've got my static strap on. This is the assembler. I'm not going to be using that, at least for the time being anyway. More of that horrible foam. There we go, it says MMMFS 1.53 and Basic 2. So I guess we have multiple versions of Basic 2. But I believe it's going to take the top one that it sees. So that is in. Well, let's try it and see what happens. Okay, so it is as before. And if we say star card, aha! I have no clue what any of that means. Clearly it's done something. I need to figure out how to use the BBC's filing system in order to understand what the hell that stuff means. I presume it has some games in there. Typically you can just shift break. Let's read this down the bottom here. Shift break to start the games menu. Another method to enter star D boot 0. Both these assume, oh, you've got this boot thing. Both these assume that MMFS is current, which I think it is. So let's just try that. Shift break. Well, that did nothing. So let's try start. Hello. We're not actually doing anything anyway. Oh, that doesn't sound healthy. Worked that time. So yeah, we've got ROM 15 is basic, ROM 14 DFS 2.26, ROM 7 is the meta editor, and ROM 5 Model B MMFS Turbo 1.53. So that says basic and DFS on it. And this is a 27256, whereas these are 27128s. Does that mean that effectively takes 2 slots? I don't know the BBC, but I assumed that these were all 16K ROMs. And they just had one ROM, one slot. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. That would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 14 and 15. Or even better, 0, 1, 2, 3. But no, because this is 5. I don't know how the numbering works. Let me know how the numbering works. And can you actually have more than one ROM slot in here? And if so, is there a way to switch? Or does it just partition the ROM into multiple sections? I don't know. So, okay, the keyboard is working. So if we say start MMFS, that should switch. And we are still working. So start dboot 0 should run the games menu. And it does. Ooh. Well, of course I'm going to go for something called airline. And let's just say question mark for help. Okay, sideways. There is a lot of stuff on here. Trek. Now, one thing we've noticed here is that this is in black and white. Ho ho, Star Trek, may the force be with you. Why can't I just use cursor keys and enter? Why has it got to do stupid things like F4 and F5? And I remember playing this when back in the 1980s, you know, on my PET. Turn it off. You get the idea. Now there is something that we can do to turn it into a colour machine. And that is, I don't know if I've got a jumper. There we go. So in this corner of the machine, there is this little 2-pin header. And if we jumper that, comme ça, that should turn this into a colour machine. So let us go back and see what that has done. So it's not going to do anything straight away, so we need to do start FS and then start D boot 0, and there we have colour. Hurrah! So it's a little bit crappy colour because it is composite, and maybe we need to get a RGB cable. That's the one that we were playing. Let's just see what it looks like in colour. Well, there we go. We don't need to go through all that again. But you can see that that is okay. So that is working. Now, in the absence of knowing what to do about the floppy drive, I think the next thing to do is have a look at the power supply, because it's possible that this just doesn't have enough oomph. And if we can get the original power supply working again, then maybe we can get the floppy drive working. I've got a spare WD1772 which we can try. So good job we didn't screw that in. Strappy on. Let's take this out. Ah, okay, now this is soldered in. I'll bet there isn't space to put a socket in, because that's going to be over the top of that. And we could put a, we could raise that up even further with another jobby. I'm not going to do that for the moment. What do you reckon? Is that likely to be the problem? If it is, we'll come back and do that in another video, I think. Right. So before we take the power supply apart and try and find out what's wrong with it, let's just plug it in and make sure that it's not working. Or at least see if we can just check. So, not connected. Voltmeter is on volts, DC. That is off. Plug it in. Switch it on at the mains. Switch it on at the switch. So this is our little wiring loom. Let's just go at this end because it's easy to get to. So that goes in the black. Whoops. Let's get this in. Right, shove that in there. Shove that in there like that. Ah, 5.07. Okay, we didn't have that before. So these should all be in parallel, so let's just check. Shove that in there. Shove that in there, 5.068. Good enough. Shove that in there. Shove that in there, 5.067. Good enough. Now, keeping that in the black one, this one, the purple wire, should be -5. And did it? What? 4.38 minus 4.4. And we've got 12 volts on this connector, which I'm going to guess it's the yellow wire, because it usually is. So, what is that? That's the middle one down. One. That's -5. That's 5.0768. Probably not connected. So this must be 12. 11.49. That's close enough. Well, I don't know why this is working when it didn't work before. But I'm going to take it as a win. Because if that worked before, then that would have saved me 40 quid on a USB power supply. Okay, let's unplug that because we don't want to be messing around with the mains. Let's get our machine back and plug him in. It should be just a matter of taking out this chappy and his associated wires. Kind of a shame, I sort of like these. But you can always keep this against needing it in the future. So we'll put that to one side. And now this, we need to feed the mains plug through. And then it goes top down. Like that. So we plug in the original cables. Purple one goes there. These are all marked 0 volts and VCC. So while they are a tax on our reading skills, they shouldn't be a problem to connect. We'll get out the hole at the back. We won't worry about the floppy drive for the time being. And similarly, we won't worry about screwing this in for the time being. So we should be able to just plug this in. Turn the monitor on. The moment of truth. Haha, I didn't turn the mains plug on. Right. Mains plug on. Moment of truth, take 2. Yes! Awesome. So now let's plug in the floppy drive and see whether the problem was that the USB power supply didn't deliver enough oomph. turn that off, turn that off. And I'm going to use this plastic lid just to put it on. Actually, we'll turn it the other way up because the flywheel should spin. Right, here we go. Excellent. So, floppy disk. The drive light is off. The drive light is still off. Ah, that's because that came out. Still not doing anything. Not doing anything there either. Try drive 0. Yes. Okay, so that did not make a difference. Let's try with drive 1. No. Okay, for the sake of completeness, I am going to try the other floppy drive. It's still got a disk in it. Let's take that out. Disk in the drive. Nothing there. Nothing there. Oops. Row 0. Still not having it. Nope. That's a shame. So it's not that. Now, if you've got any ideas as to what the problem could be with this disk drive, or this disk drive, then please let me know in the comments. I don't really know what I'm doing with BBC machines, so I think this should be fine. This is a straight through ribbon. It does not have the twist, and this is probably a default drive, so it's going to be set as drive 1, but we've tried both drive 0 and drive 1. I have no idea what this is set to. There is, if you can see it, there is a link in there. Maybe that is the drive number link. Older drives had a link to set. Newer drives you have to desolder a thing on the PCB. But this is a Toshiba Fuji brand FDD 4261A0K. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it here for now. We have made some progress, so that is a good thing. Thank you for watching. If you've got this far, please check out my Patreon if you would like to support the channel in that particular way, and I will see you next time. See ya. Bye.